Welcome to Time for Change Kitchen. I'm Danielle Bassoni. Today we are going to be making a dish that I grew up with that I absolutely love. It's called Cajun Black-eyed Peas, or Hoppin John. Some people call it Hoppin John. I grew up in South Mississippi next to the Louisiana coast, and I've never heard it called that until I was an adult, but there you have it. So we just call it black-eyed peas, and we usually serve it over cornbread. You can serve it over rice as well if you like. We're going to make it without oil. I don't like to use salt when I'm cooking anymore, but if you need to add salt, do that at the very last thing. So what we have is 2 cups of black-eyed peas that have been soaking in 5 cups of water overnight. And I did this in a separate bowl because that's the bowl I'm going to cook it in. So we're going to start by sauteing the vegetables. We have about 2.5 cups of onions. This is roughly this is a large onion, and it's roughly 2.5 cups, maybe 2.25 cups. And we've got 3 cloves of garlic that were mashed and minced. We're going to saute these on high just until they're translucent and soft. And we have a 1/2 cup of sweet peppers. I'm using some colorful peppers that I had on hand. They came in a package of just colorful sweet peppers. Typically, the Louisiana cuisine uses green pepper. Celery, onions, and bell pepper, green bell pepper, are known as the Holy Trinity of Cajun cooking, and it's in just about everything they cook. But I'm using what I have on hand, and it doesn't make a big difference. And we have 2 stalks, or about 1 cup of celery. So this is the Trinity going in here. And while they're sauteing, I'll tell you about some of the other ingredients. At the end, we're going to add 1 link of field roast chipotle Mexican sausage. This is not very much, but it's enough to add a lot of flavor. But if you don't care to have this is a vegan sausage, and so if you don't care to have this in there, just don't put it in. I like it just as well either way. My husband tends to like it with a sausage in it, so I add that for him. And for spices, we are going to add a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a tablespoon of basil. Now this is basil from my garden, which is not very condensed, so you may want to start out with a teaspoon of basil and see how strong you want it. This will probably be similar to a teaspoon of commercial basil. And we have a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. We're going to use about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper and 1/8 teaspoon of white pepper. White pepper you want to be careful with because it can easily overpower a dish. It adds a nice little flavor, but you don't want to use too much of it. And towards the end, if you want, you can add salt. Okay, so we'll just saute these until they're nice and translucent. And also, we're going to add some greens into the beans. This is not necessarily traditional, but I like to put greens in everything I cook. And I'm using spinach. One reason is because I have it on hand. And for another reason, it wilts very quickly into it without becoming a huge part of the dish. And it's very soft and easy to include in it. You can use collard greens. Traditionally, black-eyed peas are served with collard greens on the side. But this is not really a very good season to buy good collard greens. So you can also get kale. You can also use kale. So I'm just going to put some spinach in the beans, and that sort of takes care of my greens for this dish. By the way, I have to say I really love this non-stick liner that goes in my Instant Pot. I also like to keep a little water on pan so that as you're sauteing, if this starts to stick to the bottom, you can release some of the caramelization with the water. We are not going to caramelize these. We're just going to let them sweat until they're nice and soft and translucent. When I cut up these vegetables, I chop them into a pretty fine chop, pretty fine dice. Most of the peppers I didn't do quite as fine, but I should have. One of the things that I like to do sometimes is to cook my vegetables on my stovetop in a larger pan, because you can move it around more. It's got more space to move it around, and it cooks quicker. But if your goal is to cook everything in your Instant Pot, of course that doesn't help. I'm not a big fan of sauteing in my Instant Pot because it just doesn't give me the room to move my vegetables around in the way that I would like. Okay, I think this is probably good enough. Okay, we're going to turn this off. Okay. Okay, that's good. And I'm going to take this and set it aside. These little mitts are fantastic for working with the Instant Pot. If you use a towel or a bigger pot holder, you get caught up on all these little side gadgets and it just gets in the way. Okay. So now we'll put in our beans, and we can transfer this to the beans. Now these beans, you have to be sure you pick through your beans and make sure you don't have any rocks or stones or debris in it, and then wash them thoroughly before you soak them, because sometimes they'll have dirt on them, and it will spare you some expensive dental work if you take those little precautions. These were 2 cups of dried beans, and I soaked them in 5 cups of water. And so now I'm going to add the chipotle sausage. This is one vegan sausage, and it has been sliced down the middle into quarters, 4 long slices, and then cut across to do little 1/4-inch pieces. To that we're going to add our spices. A teaspoon of cayenne pepper. If you don't like cayenne pepper, don't add it. If you like more, add more. Our 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. A tablespoon of dried basil. And I'm just going to guess as to how much of this is 1/8 of a teaspoon because of experience. And that's enough. Okay. So now we'll put it on our lid, and we're going to set it on high pressure for 7 minutes. And then we're going to let it release naturally. So it's already set on 7 minutes, and we're going to move the toggle to the seal position. When the pressure valve pops up, the Instant Pot will start counting down to 7 minutes, and then we'll let it release naturally until the pressure valve has dropped down again. and then we will add our spinach. Okay, we'll be back. Okay, we're back, and this has just dropped down, and we are going to open it. And hopefully, and we do, have perfectly cooked black-eyed peas. And it's got this, it has this nice juicy backdrop, which is what we want. And what we're going to do now is just add some spinach to it. And how much you add is up to you. I like to put a handful or two. You don't want to overwhelm it with the greens because it is a bean dish. But you do want to give it, you do want to add to the nutrition and color. Any time I get a chance to add greens, I do. Okay, we'll add a few more. And this is very easy with spinach because it just melts right into the dish. And as you see, we're right up to the fill line. And so we put in a perfect amount of ingredients to not overfill the Instant Pot. May as well put these last few ones in here. So if you want to put salt in it, this would be the time to do it. Okay, there we have it. Hoppin John, or black-eyed peas and cornbread. And we'll be serving it over cornbread in just a moment, as soon as it comes out of the oven. I'm Danielle Pisoni, serving up whole foods for whole health.